Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I just wish to rise tonight to make a few comments about the National Security Legislation Amendment Bill No. 1 that has recently been passed in this place, and that's particularly in the light of a number of emails that I've been receiving and commentary in newspapers where some people seem to have believed the assertions made by some that we have just granted new powers to intelligence organisations here that would put them on a footing with the previous Soviet bloc or some Cold War era organisation, and clearly they haven't done their own due diligence to understand the balance, the protections that have been put into this process. There have been some assertions that these new laws were very much a creation of this government, rushed through in response to current events. But I just want to re-emphasise that the review, or these amendments actually have their origin in the work of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security that was actually conducted under the previous government. And based on the recommendations that they made, this legislation was brought forward. It was referred to the current Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, which I have the honour to serve. And it's been the subject of additional review. Not only do we have the 9 days of hearings in this current PJCIS inquiry, some 240 submissions, but also the discussion here in the Senate. What I'd like to do is just go through some of the key points that people have raised to give them an assurance that the work of the committee, in fact, was to understand what the amendments were proposing, to hear the concerns from a broad range of people in the community, and then to give the government amendments to address those concerns which were raised. In some cases, what I will cover is indicating that the assumption that people have made about this legislation was actually false in the first place, but that what we've done is to make it absolutely clear for the avoidance of doubt in the legislation, or in some cases the explanatory memorandum, where the legislation in fact was already satisfied the concerns of the committee. First off, I want to address the issue of the use of force. Some of the commentary I've seen would indicate that people believe we have now authorised our intelligence agencies to, at will, with no authorisation or supervision, use force as they see fit. Nothing could be further from the truth. Imagine the scenario where a raid has been planned, and when you get into the house or the building, you find somebody who is in possession of evidence that is the focus of the raid, and they choose to walk out the back door or run out the back door. At the moment, or under the previous legislation, an ASIO officer couldn't block their passage to stop them going out the door, because that would be using force against the person. And so clearly there is an obligation there for the success of the mission to actually allow them to use reasonable force to do something like block somebody's exit so that they can actually obtain the material that they may have. There was a deal of discussion in the committee about the fact that if somebody is going to be authorised to use force, then they have to have suitable training, and there was a requirement then that I just should look at that training and make sure it was suitable. But the important part that I want to get to, and this comes to Schedule 2 of the bill as amended, the powers of the organisation being ASIO, in response to Recommendation 6 from our report, is it inserts a new section in the proposed subdivision H, which are the general provisions relating to warrants, and it specifies notification requirements that will apply to any warrants issued under the ASIO Act authorising the use of force against persons. And that's the point I really want to emphasise. In order for an ASIO agent to use this power, it has to be explicitly authorised in a warrant. So it's not as though people off their own bat can go and do something that the rest of society would look at and go, we don't think that's appropriate. It has to be authorised in a warrant. More importantly, in terms of a check and balance, it requires the Director General of Security to notify the Attorney General and the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security, so IGIS, the independent watch body, if force is used against a person in the execution of a warrant. And that notification must be given in writing and as soon as practicable after force against the person is used. And so we have here two checks and balances, one pre-existing in that it could only be authorised by warrant, and as a result of the committee's work there is also the additional check that says, well, if you have actually used it, then clearly the person must be suitably trained, but there must be a report, both back to the attorney but also to IGIS, so that they can keep a watch over how frequently this is used and how that training equips people to do it. And if you think through the scenarios that were postulated, it is not a subversive or bad power for people to use. In terms of computer access, again, I've read articles that would indicate that we have given permission to ASIO to at will interrogate the entire internet. Again, in response to recommendation 5 of the committee's report, Schedule 2 of the bill, again the powers of organisation, was amended, a new subsection, section 34, requiring a specific matter to be included in reports on warrants that have authorised computer access. So again, two elements here. First, there has to be a warrant to access the computer. So it has to be specifically authorised. And secondly, there is a report to make sure that where that power is authorised, it's been done in an appropriate way. I'd then like to just touch on special intelligence operations. There's been some concern about special intelligence operations as though there's something completely new, and particularly around protecting the safety of the officers who are working in that by limiting the ability of people to talk about it. Special intelligence operations, this legislation has been modelled on the controlled operations regime that the AFP already use and have done for many years under the Crimes Act. And so we have a federal government body that's using a power that provides them the ability to essentially have an undercover operation, and it has provisions about disclosure, reckless disclosure, that would endanger the lives of people. And that has been working without abuse, and it hasn't limited or dampened the ability of media to report. What we have done, though, because of the concerns of people around the inability of people, or the perceived inability of people to report if they think there is wrongdoing, we have amended Schedule 3 of the bill to include specific offence exceptions. And what that does is amends Section 35P of the bill to insert additional exceptions on the unauthorised disclosure of information relating to special intelligence operations. So again, let's narrow this in. This restriction is not about all ASIO operations. It is specifically about the undercover or the SIO operations, and we have made specific mention in the bill that there's a public interest test before any prosecution, that the fault of recklessness is specifically brought out, but also we specifically make it clear that if somebody has a concern about the conduct, the way ASIO is doing its business, then they are not at fault if they go to the IGIS and they disclose their concerns to the IGIS, who is the appropriate authority with the appropriate security clearances to take action. Many people have argued that the media is completely responsible, and I have no doubt that the vast majority of people in the media are that, but incidents still do occur. There is the famous incident in August of 2009 where before a raid actually took place, papers were hitting the streets with the story in the papers, and it's contested in terms of the events that led up to that, but the issue is officers' lives were put at risk because that information got out. So we're not seeking to dampen media reporting. What we're seeking to do is make sure there's appropriate provisions there to keep the lives of officers who put their lives on the line for the Australian community in these undercover operations from being recklessly exposed, which not only undermines the operation but puts their lives at risk. The committee has done its work with the support of the witnesses who have provided a range of evidence to make sure that this bill has been amended to have suitable checks and balances so that ASIO have the powers they need to do their job, but the community can be assured that they are doing it in a responsible manner for the benefits of the Australian community.
Thank you, Senator Fawcett.